Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. This is Friday, April 19th, and we are live right here from the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios in Lubbock, Texas, and we are live on, I think we're live. I didn't get my intro, and I think we're live, and I believe I got my calendar right and everything right here on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio and 1420 AM Lubbock Christian Nation. We were having a little difficulty. Ken's doing a great job. Thank you, Ken, for getting that taken care of. He's been at the studio working on this for about an hour, trying to get this thing put together, having a little connection problem. So I wasn't able to log in on time, but I think we're good to go right now. And I guess he'll let me know shortly if we're not. But I got my microphone on and got my social media started. So I think everybody out there is. I think we're all on here together, and we're good to go. So it's going to be an interesting show tonight. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best to get through it. And I knew if I started talking about it, I was going to tear up. So you're just going to have to bear with me tonight. So I'm hoping I can make this happen. I really want to make it happen. But we're in the final hours of the life of my dad, and so he is. He's been in hospice for a couple weeks, and or I don't know, 10 days, 14 days, or something like that. He's just come to the end of his life, and so tonight I'm going to try to do a tribute show and just talk about his life a little bit. And I've been like this all day and all night, and the last several days. It's like it's a full spectrum feeling, and I know a lot of you guys know what this feels like because you've been through it yourselves, and it's just time. It's just time for him to pass, and you guys know it. A lot of you lost your parents. A lot of you lost children. A lot of you lost spouses. I'm by no means trying to feel sorry for myself because I sure don't. I don't feel sorry for myself at all. I'm not a victim, and I'm not trying to be weak and just sit here and blabber. But we call the show Life, and life is full spectrum, and I want all of it. I want my glasses are fogging up. I want the highest of the highs, and I want the lowest of the lows, and I want to feel the feelings that go along with it. I want to feel the feelings of sadness, of loss. I want to feel the joys of winning. One of my favorite quotes is from Dick Vermeil, and he says, if you don't invest very much, then losing doesn't hurt very much, and winning isn't very exciting. And I've been putting this off. Haven't said much about it at the office. I don't want it to be any big deal with the people that come to get adjusted, because it's not why you come here. You come here to get adjusted so that your life can be better. And Dad wouldn't want it any other way. Yesterday he told me make a hand. I told him I was going to go to work, and let's see what this is. I told him I was going to go to work, and he said, make a hand. And he said, you've always had good hands. And he was trying to say, use them to help those people. That was the man that he was. Um, he was 80 years old. He lived a full life, but man, the lessons that he taught me um, are so valuable to me. It's so ironic because um, my dad had ankylosing spondylitis, and I mentioned it a little bit last night on the show. Um, if you've ever, if you guys don't know what that means, it's what would be considered an autoimmune type of arthritis, um, which is there's just so much irony in the whole thing. There's just so much interesting uh, learning experiences because I don't believe in that whatsoever, right? The but you would it's interesting that a guy who spends his life working on the nervous system has a dad whose nervous system didn't work right, and so I didn't know that growing up. I didn't really understand. And ankylosing spondylitis is it starts in your sacrum in your 20s. Um, Dad was he was playing college basketball. He played at Weatherford Junior College and transferred to East Texas State. And I was laughing earlier when I was trying to prepare some of this stuff and talk about it because um, I don't know I don't know all the stories of all the things my aunt and uncles and my mom and um, they know their true stories about all this stuff. That generation of people, those 80-year-olds, they had a tendency, at least in my family, to keep a lot of that stuff to themselves. And so, Dad did talk about a whole lot of stuff of of that was personal back in the day. And I don't know if he wasn't proud of it, or he just didn't think it was important, or he didn't think it was any of my business. I imagine that was probably more of it, but. So as far as I know, the way the story goes, he was playing basketball at East Texas State University, and he was warming up for a game, and he went up for a layup, and when he came down, he jammed that SI joint and fell to the ground and couldn't stand up and walk. And he's probably 20 years old. If you went to junior college when you were 18 and 19, probably spent 2 seasons there, and then went to East Texas State. And so he's 20 years old. He was born. My grandparents were poor oil field people. Um, my grandpa left home when he was about 14 years old. His mama died. His daddy married a lady that was didn't really like him all that much, and she had a son, and they didn't get along with each other. And so my grandpa just took off, and he left home, and he was from Arkansas. He went and stayed with the aunt and uncle or something like that, and then ended up somehow he ended up in East Texas, a little bitty town called Talco, Talco, and that's where my dad was born. And he had an older brother. He had two older brothers, and then it was him, and then he had a younger brother that came along. As far as I know, that's only four of them. So there's four boys in an oil field town in East Texas with the oil field pumper, driller. I don't know what my grandpa did. He did something. He was an oil field worker pretty much the whole time that I ever knew anything about him. And he was a hard man. He was a those guys didn't in my family they didn't really communicate love, and so I don't think my dad got a lot of that. I don't know that to be true, but I'm guessing that was the way it was. And then that's not really something that was common growing up. He loved us to death, and when he got older, he shared that with us, and he told me that yesterday. Uh, and but it wasn't common, so he was just kind of on his own and had to go figure out life, and then all of a sudden this disease process hits him, and he doesn't. This is my story, but he didn't really know what to do. He goes to the doctor. He goes to multiple doctors. He goes to chiropractors, and can't walk. He goes in, gets adjusted, can't walk out of there. He said, "No, I am not interested in that chiropractic thing." And he's young, and finally goes to the hospital, and they put him in tractioning for several days and maybe a week, whatever. And they run blood tests on him, and they tell him, "This is what you got. You got ankylosing spondylitis. It's going to eat you up from your sacrum all the way up to your neck, and it's eventually going to move out to your shoulders, and it'll get into your eyes, and uh, there's nothing you can do about it. And just take aspirin, and that's what you're going to get for the rest of your life." And so that's what he did. He didn't make excuses. Never, never heard him say anything about it. It's just obvious if you look back, and I have over the last several years at doing what I do, looking back and um, seeing the decision making that goes along with that type of disease. Um, because I try to talk about it. I try to talk about it when I can. That it's just like your car battery has an alternator that keeps that battery charged. And if you've ever had your alternator go out, then you realize that your battery is going to go dead. And your spine is that way to your brain. And your spine, if it's not moving properly, then it won't fire your brain properly. And if your brain doesn't fire properly, you're not going to make good decisions. You're going to have anger issues if your left brain is hyperactive. You're going to have anxiety issues, and you're going to have depression issues, and you're going to have concentration issues, and Dad was like that. He was I wrote down the towns. I was born in Winsboro, Texas. He got a job coaching in Winsboro, and that's where I was born. And I don't know exactly the order, and I think I've got all these right. I wrote them down before, but I was born in Winsboro, and we lived in Palestine, and then we lived in Mesquite, and we lived in Wolf City. And then the year before kindergarten, we moved to Jones, Oklahoma. And we lived in Jones, Oklahoma for 2 years, and then we moved to Del City, Oklahoma. And then Dad was at Del City High School for 3 years, and then he quit there and went to Crooked Oak High School in Oklahoma City. And then he was there for 1 year, and then he quit again. And so there were a lot of changes. He had a hard time. He had a hard time as a young man sticking to things, and it wasn't like he always moved up. It was more that he had some sort of integrity issue somewhere along the way. He didn't feel like somebody treated him right, and he wasn't going to put up with that, and he was going to move to the next thing. And it's not so much like his brothers. They all his little brother had things kind of figured out. He moved up pretty much every time he moved. But Dad wasn't that kind of guy. And when I look back at it, doing what I do today, that's the thing. It's funny how this comes in waves. But because you have these thoughts, and he didn't make good decisions financially. He didn't make good decisions career-wise. It wasn't his gift. It wasn't his strength. His strength was work. His strength was hard work and no excuses. And I always consider myself to be one of the toughest kids on my team. I always consider myself to be one of the highest integrity kids in my class. Man, you better get your work done. You better get your work done. You better get to school. I didn't have one drop of alcohol. I did not drink one drop of alcohol before I was 21 years old. My dad, all he had to do is say no alcohol. And the butt whippings that I got when I was a little kid, he had me intimidated probably to this day. So but there's there's a toughness that goes along with that, and there's no that to me is priceless because I have achieved the things that I have achieved uh, through life. Part of the reason is because of the toughness and that I got from home. So life is balanced. Half of it is awesome, and half of it sucks. And I always say that every single day. It's like that's the way it is. Half of half of your day is great, and half your day sucks. And the balance of the universe, that's what John DeMartini taught me, is that there's balance in the universe. And the the balance of my dad was there was that there was that toughness, there was that meanness, there was that unfairness. It was it was like, I mean, just I don't get into all the stories, but there was just a lot of that growing up. And now I look at it and I just think, man, I really like my I really like myself now. um, I like the husband. Sorry, I dropped my Kleenex. I like the husband that I am. I like the dad that I am. Um, I like the doctor that I am. I like the work ethic that I have. And so it's really hard to, and I don't obviously don't mean that in any sort of arrogant way, but it's really hard to balance. Kind of. Um, it's not hard. It's like there's part of you that just wants to be frustrated with the way things went, and then you look at yourself and you like yourself, and then you say, well, it worked pretty good. However, it worked, and I think a lot of it had to do with my mama because my mama's an angel. She's one of those ladies that sacrificed her life for us. She sacrificed her older life for him, and she's been by his side every second, and been with him, and she is absolutely an angel of a woman. And so you get the combination of that kind of toughness, and along with that, um, my mom, and it just brings it. What I'm really just trying to share is that I think that's the way life works. I think that it's healthy to understand that. I think it's I think it's healthy to, like, I don't want to be non-emotional. I want to feel it when it's there. And it's funny, it's really weird about this thing cuz I spend every minute of my day, pretty much every minute of every day, um, working to help people's life live better, to help people live better. That's what my mission is in life. That's what I do. And this death thing, man, it trips me up. It is so uh, it's and you guys know it. I mean, I don't mean, I'm sure not trying to be insensitive to anybody's loss. You guys know what it's like. We've all lost. I've lost aunts and uncles and grandparents, and uh, haven't lost any aunts. I've lost uncles and grandparents. I mean, heaven forbid you lost a child. That there's those things that um, everybody goes through it, and uh, but I want to feel it. I want to feel it, and I want to deal with it, and I want to talk about it. I want to share it, and I want to share some of the things that I learned from it. And it's to me, it's the fulfillment. It's fulfillment of life. I'm fantastic. I'm fantastic today. I know it doesn't look like I'm fantastic today, but uh, my patients always ask me, "How you doing today?" And I say, "I'm fantastic" or "I'm fabulous," and I am. I'm fantastic today. Dad suffered. That ankylosing spondylitis. It eats you up, and it just basically welds all of your vertebrae together. They call it a bamboo spine. You got no movement. Dad's one of those guys that hunched, and his head he would his hunched like that, and his head was forward. So if he wanted to try to look up, like he had to try to tilt himself back. If he wanted to look out that window, he would he'd have to turn his whole body to look out the window. When he was driving his pickup truck, he'd have to come up to an intersection and like he kind of swerved to the right and then aimed the pickup truck back to the left a little bit so that he could see anybody coming down there. So before he could turn and make a turn, he had to get his he had no spinal movement whatsoever. And on top of that, he was a smoker. He started smoking when he was young. I don't really know when, if it was college. I don't know if it was. We don't know what caused the ankylosing. We don't know what was the initial trigger. It usually happens in your 20s. He said he remembered getting the flu, and 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 then he was a smoker on top of that. Well, it's like, of course he is. Like, you guys know it. Why was he a smoker? He's a smoker because he had left hemisphere issues and a lack of dopamine in the left brain. It's like, of course he did. Why are we alcoholics? Why are we pornography addicted to things? Why are we addicted to sugar? It's the same exact thing. It's all the same. It like makes total sense to me. So you add this lack of nutrition. He was a meat and potatoes guy, East Texas guy. Like if we had vegetables in my house growing up, they were deep fried in cornmeal. That's what I used to say. Um, Fried squash and fried okra and mashed potatoes and baked potatoes and corn on the cob, which is not even a vegetable. That was my upbringing, and so dad's diet was horrible, and his exercise was non-existent because he couldn't move. He tried to play golf. The guys told him when he left the hospital, he said, or one of his doctors said, you probably never going to play golf. You probably should stay away from that, because you could just imagine any sort of rotation in your spine, how that would cause problems. So he didn't have any exercise, and he just worked. He worked hard, and he worked all the time, and um, so didn't have a good diet. We didn't have good exercise. We smoked for 60 years. We had no spinal movement, and so then we start getting into the 60s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, and then now here comes all the stuff. Right, here comes the stroke. We had the stroke. Here comes the stent in the heart. We had the surgery for the stent in the heart, um, and then man, here comes the neuropathy, and that's what was miserable at the end. The neuropathy basically, uh, it was it was unbelievable. Um, the pain in 2000, I'm pretty sure it was 2021. It was during the COVID stuff. Uh, he still was getting along pretty good. So for 77 years, basically, he got along okay. Um, and he never missed work. He trained racehorses. We moved out after he left that Crooked Oak jog. That's when we were going to open up that sporting goods store in Oklahoma City, and then my uncles bought a ranch in Roswell, and we moved to Roswell, New Mexico, and he started training racehorses. And Dad was a super intelligent guy. He was very, very smart, and took on to that whole horse business full speed. Taught us all about that stuff. Learned a bunch. Learned how to train racehorses. Learned all the history. He had all the blood horse magazines and the quarter horse magazines and all that stuff. And he knew the breeding of the thoroughbreds and all the quarter horses. And he had a whole industry to catch up on. And and did a great job with that, and did a did a relatively good job training considering the circumstances that he was dealing with, and and then but then there was always those crazy decisions. There was always those um, the different kind of decisions, and that just when you look back on it, it doesn't make any sense. So um, we're coming up on a break on the radio. I appreciate you guys sticking around listening to the show tonight. I'm really hoping it brings some value to life. I really do hope that it brings some value to your health, to be able to talk through some of this stuff. I know it brings value to me. So if you're going to stick around, we'll finish up the show on the other side. If you have any questions, you can send me a text or send me a message. And otherwise, we'll be right back. Yeah. If you're still hanging around, thank you. Um, I appreciate it. If you got any questions or comments, anything that you want to ask about this whole situation, I'm totally glad to share it with you. Um, the thing about it is to be transparent. I want I want you to know that um, life is important. Like really, it's like really important to me. It's really important to me because I know what it's like when we lose it. I know what it's like when you lose your health because it's firsthand knowledge. I've seen it my whole life. I've seen what it does to a person when their nervous system doesn't work right. And when I break down this nervous system, and I'm talking about right side to left side, and upper brain dampening lower brain, and the way that the brain fires, the reason that I try to share that information with you is because you lose your health if you don't get that right. Like, and when you lose your health, when you don't get it right, it affects you and your spouse and your kids and your parents and the future of the world. Like it it just dampens the whole thing. And when you start studying it, you just want it to be right. Like you just want to share it in a way that, and the background, it's kind of like I asked Dr. Fraley, hang on, let me get us back on the radio. Okay, everybody, we're back with Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. It's Friday, April 19th, and we're live coming to you. So we're talking about my dad tonight. And one of the things I was saying on the break is that, it is very important to me. Health is very important to me because I've seen what happens when you lose it. And I've seen the impact that it makes on a person's life when they lose it. And all of these things that we talk about on this show come from the effort to try to say that, hey, look, these are the things that I think are important, the things that I've learned that are important. And I was thinking about this, and I know you guys on the radio won't be able to see this part, but I don't know how many days when you're growing up with a football coach, um, you learn football on a napkin. You get a napkin at the table. It's like, hey, give me something to write on. Like, it's like, and you had a yellow pad, or you had a napkin or something. And I don't know how many times that in my lifetime that we would do this. We would draw this little thing out like this, and you guys can't see it, but it's a football formation. It's called a wishbone. And um, and then we'd write in our defense and then decide how we were going to put those guys in there, where everybody was going to be. And so we would write this down. I don't even have it turned on for you, but we would write it down, and that, I don't know how many times I saw that in my lifetime. And that's just one defense. That's a 3-4 defense, but there's a 50 defense, and there's all kinds of stuff right there. And it's like, all right, like, how are we going to block that? How are we going to how are you going to run that triple option, right? So we're not going to block that guy. We're just going to slip off. We're going to slip off of him. We're going to block him, and then he's going to arc and he's going to block him. And this guy's going to come down inside, and we're going to double team that, and he's going to seal that off. This guy's going to seal that off, and then they're going to keep their eyes on this guy. And we're going to run the fullback right at, whoops, I missed that angle, but we're going to run him right at that defensive tackle, and the quarterback's going to step and ride that in there. And then this guy's going to come around here and low block that end. Actually, this tight end's going to release to that safety. Never mind on that one. And if this defensive tackle comes down, I'm the quarterback right there. I'm going to pull it. So I'm going to ride it right here. My eyeballs are going to be on that defensive tackle. And then if he comes down, I'm going to keep it right here. And then we're going to load that end. And I'm just going to come around here, and we're going to see what that corner does. And then we're out the gate, and that's called the triple option. And that's, I can't tell you how many napkins I grew up with. Watch it, drawing that out. From the time I don't even know. I mean, I remember I was born in October, and I went to my first football game when I was about 10 years old. 10 years old. When I about 2 weeks old, I went to my first football game. And my first hero when I lived in, that I remember when I lived in Jones, Oklahoma, his name was Bobby Wynn. He was the quarterback of our football team, and I was the year before I was in kindergarten. And so I remember getting out in the front yard throwing the football from the time I was a little guy. And breaking down plays like that over and over and over and over again, and understanding where everybody fit, and understanding that it was my responsibility as a quarterback to understand where everybody fit. And I could break all that down for you, where everybody lined up, where my guys lined up, where all the blocking was supposed to happen. And I drew them a little bit wrong right there, because it's probably been about 40 years. No, 30 years since I've drawn that. So, but I was thinking about it today, and I was thinking about those days of repetition, of understanding how things fit together, understanding how things work together, serves me invaluably every single day, because that's what I did. I had an 8-hour seminar that I spent up here at the office learning about our brain master technology and our neurofeedback that we've got in the office. And I had great conversations with my teacher, and I'll be back here tomorrow for 8 hours, regardless of what goes on, because I don't know, we're down to nothing. We're at this stage of life where all we got left is brainstem and really short respiration. And I don't know how many more hours it's going to last. But I'm going to go back after the show, and I'm going to hang out with him. And I stayed up with him last night and played him some good country music. Played him some George Jones and Merle Haggard and some Waylon Jennings, and he actually opened his eyes for a second, and he was trying, with all his strength, he was trying to tell me about some Waylon song that had to do with, he said, an airplane, but he said he heard that song, he liked it, and I finally figured out what he was talking about, and it's called "The Eagle" by Waylon Jennings, and it's about America and the eagle, and so we played it for him last night. But I wouldn't. I mean, doing this show tonight is exactly what Dad would expect me to do, and being up here tomorrow is is what is just part of the deal, right? And go on with it. I mean, I don't know how many times I heard that. Just go on with it. Get it done. Make a hand. Go get it. You got responsibilities, so take them. And and this stuff carried forward to breaking down the nervous system and understanding the pathways and understanding as best of my ability. Now I've gotten into something that's way bigger than I'll probably ever figure out in my lifetime, uh, into the human nervous system. I really don't think I'll ever get a grasp of exactly what it's doing, and I'm not too sure anybody else does either. And I'm way behind a lot of guys as far as the way it goes. But um, those those napkins helped. They helped the process of of um, learning how to learn and learning how to take responsibility. It's is one of the things my dad always told me is it's your responsibility to throw it and get it caught. Um, when you're a quarterback, a lot of prima donna quarterbacks think if they throw the ball and it hits a guy right in the hands and the guy drops it, that it's that guy's fault. In my house, if you threw the football and you hit the guy right in the hands and he dropped it, you should have thrown it better. It's your responsibility to throw it and get it caught. And basically, the lesson from that was, hey, don't be blaming. It's a team sport, and you've got a job to do. And don't be blaming somebody else when things go wrong. You gotta throw it and get it caught. So I say that a lot to our staff. They don't quite understand what it means. I try to understand it. So teaching and learning things and then learning how to teach them is, I think, one of those fundamental things that I got from Dad. I think that lesson right there of throwing it and getting it caught, I got to get you to catch it. I got to get you to understand it. And I think a lot of times I'm not very good at it. I think I probably spend way too much time talking about it. I spend too much time in the nuts and bolts of the whole thing, and and it's too in depth sometimes for some of the people, and it's too shallow for some of the other people, and so it's difficult to try to throw it and get it caught when you're throwing it to everybody. But I'm not scared of it, and I'm not going to back off of it. I'm going to keep working on it, and um, but I think those are lessons. You know, those are lessons that we learned. I could have been more fortunate to have my Uncle John, um, and my Aunt Jenny. The I couldn't have been more fortunate for them to do the things that they did in my lifetime. I told my mom this last night, I think, or it's either last night or this morning, that probably the most influential person, one of the most influential persons outside mom and dad in my whole entire life was my Uncle John, because of the impact he made on my life. And getting to grow up in Roswell, New Mexico in the '80s and on a horse ranch, and the the work and the things that we learned to do and the responsibility that we had. I mean, Dad sent me one time from Ruidoso to Roswell. I don't even know if I had a driver's license. I think I might have been 14 years old, or I might have just had my driver's license. I don't remember. I've always told the story that I don't think I had my driver's license, but uh, we raised alfalfa on that ranch, and we had some hay at the ranch, but we're 70 miles away from Ruidoso, and so Dad sends me with a truck and a trailer from the racetrack at Ruidoso to a standard of all things, a standard truck, and I had to come up a hill to get out of the racetrack. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got a trailer on the back of this, and I got to make a left-hand turn onto the highway. And I really do think I was maybe, I know I was 14 or 15 years old. I don't remember, but he sent me to Roswell to get a load of hay and then come back. And because we had a horse running that day and he couldn't leave. And so there was lots of responsibility at a young age. I remember going to horse sales and leading those horses uh, up to the ring and shoot, I wasn't very old, and I, but we just he left me when I was 19, which is plenty old enough. 19 was plenty old enough, but with 10 horses, I think we were training 12 horses. He took two of them to Santa Fe to run in some trials, and I was at the racetrack in Ruidoso, and he said um, he left me there with the groom, and the groom was brand new, and he was a grown man, and I was a 19-year-old kid. And the day after Dad left, the groom quit, and so, and then he ran in the trials and qualified, so he stayed up there for like 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, and so I was training 10 racehorses by myself in two different barns when I was 19, and that was great. I mean, it was absolutely great experience. It was hard work. It lasted all day long, uh, but it was great to be able to have that responsibility because I've always felt like those upbringing things were super cool. So another thing I want to talk about um, was something that I hope everybody can learn is, and I really saw this with my dad. That as I was starting to see it with my dad, I started to see it with other people too, and um, I really think it's a big deal. I learned, and I've mentioned it before, but I've learned that um, there's not counting some sort of accident or something. I'm just talking about longevity in life and when a person starts to die. Um, what I learned is that there's two ways that it happens. You can you can have your body give up and you still have a good mind, or it can go the other way around. My grandmother-in-law, Leslie's grandmother, was 97 years old. She died in 2010, and she was 97. And she it was more of a body thing for her. She was sharp as heck all the way to the end, and but it was more that she just kind of started to hunch, and we know that the hunching part of it is the frontal lobe going away, right? So I don't know if I could verbalize this properly, but if you have a person in your life, it's obvious to see when the body's giving up, right? The brain's working good, but the body's giving up. That's not so hard to understand. But sometimes it's really hard to understand the other way around. It's hard to understand if you really do not understand this concept, you will get frustrated. You'll get frustrated with people because when the brain believes that there's nothing you can do to make it well, when the brain believes that this is the end of it, when the brain gives up, even though the body still could work, the body is still capable of doing things, but the brain has just fatigued. And I don't know exactly. There may be smarter people than me that can really explain that, uh, that understand the neurology and the physiology of it and the neurochemistry of it. But I saw it. Dad reached a point where he didn't think he could get better, and it was very frustrating for us. It was very frustrating for his little brother. Uh, his little brother is a fitness guy. Has been a marathon runner and a weightlifter and has done all that stuff. And he doesn't fit the mold of the other two brothers at all. The other two brothers were just kind of like um, spitting images of my grandpa, even though my grandpa was a hard-bodied man. I think he died when he was 84, and this generation is the first one. So my grandpa was 84, and then all of a sudden, I think my uncle was 73, and my other uncle was 80, and now my dad's 80, and my other uncle is the only one that has a chance to outlive my grandpa. And he sure probably will do it because of his health, because of his fitness, because of his weightlifting. Um, if and I don't even know what his diet's like, but uh, if in the 1970s, high fructose corn syrup was introduced, and then Pepsi came along, and then McDonald's came along, and then Pizza Hut came along, and this generation of people who are 80 years old now, they were having kids. So Dad is born in 43, so uh, 1973, he's 30 years old. So he's 30 years old and married, two kids, one more on the way. Um, and now all of a sudden there's it's quickness, it's microwave ovens, it's two 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 people working outside the home. We went to babysitters when I was a little kid, and we moved every daggum several years. I mean, one, two, three, four, and five before the year I was in kindergarten. You start kindergarten when you're 5 years old, don't you? So we lived in five different towns before I even was when I was 4 years old. We were moving a lot, and what happens what happened to this generation is they got lied to. They got lied to and they got snookered. And they by I say this all the time, every wind of change and cunning and craftiness of men. Those pharmaceutical companies don't care anything about your health. My dad is on mom was telling me that she didn't know what to do with all the medicine. The whole cabinet's full. And she's like, what am I supposed to do with all this medicine? We were just having that conversation a while ago. Think that medicine made my dad's life any better? Not a flipping bit of it did it make it any better. All it did is trap his brain, and all it did is trap his body, and the Plavix and the all that garbage crap that he had to take. And what he wouldn't do is he wouldn't do anything healthy. I'd take him fish oil. I'd take him vitamin D. I'd take him movement things for his feet. I'd get him laser glasses for his eyes. I would try to talk to him about coming up here. I bought a treadmill for $25,000, thinking that Dad would come up here and walk on the treadmill, like we could get him back on his feet and give him a chance. And he was in so much pain, and the neuropathy was so bad. And when he gave in to the neuropathy, because the neuropathy was so bad, and that's what happened in 2021, he fell backwards. He reached down to pick up a rock off the ground and was going to put it on a golf cart. And when he stood up, he didn't have any balance. Why didn't he have any balance? He didn't have any balance because balance comes from three places. Balance comes from your eyes. Balance comes from your vestibular system inside your ear. And balance comes from your proprioceptive system, the system of neurological input into your brain. That's when I talk about that I can feel my foot on this stool because I can feel my shoe on the metal. I can feel the rubber between my shoe and the metal I know my knees are bent. The reason I know all that stuff is because that's called proprioception. That's receptors that are in all the parts of my body that are feeding into my brain, right? Why is it so important to me that we get your vestibular system proper? Why is it so important to me that we get your visual system proper? Why is it so important to me that we get your proprioceptive system proper? Because you might lean over and pick up a rock and fall backwards and break your back. And that's exactly what my dad did. And he wouldn't go to the hospital because he knew he wouldn't get in an ambulance. He said it hurt too bad. So what did he do? He crawled himself up and made it to his recliner. And he basically sat in his recliner for 12 weeks. That was the end of it. And that was in 2021. That was the mechanism of downhill fall, because there was nothing. That was when the neuropathy took over, and the neuropathy took over because of the sacrum and the stenosis, the decreasing of the spinal canal, because of the increasing of calcium buildup and of bone development that happens and there's no room for the nerves. And he thought that the neuropathy was the diabetes, which the diabetes contributed to the whole thing. It was a combination of both of them together. The combination of sugar in the. I mean, I would go see my dad, and then I'd come up here and do a show. I'd go see my dad, and I'd see the neuropathy in my dad's feet, and then I would come up here and do a show, and I'd try to talk to you about neuropathy. I'd go see him, and I'd walk into his house, and there'd be a Coke sitting over there next to his um, chair, and there would be the refined carbohydrates that was going on, and there would be the bowl of ice cream, or there would be the candy that was sitting over there, and the neuropathy was just getting worse and worse and worse, and then he couldn't get up and get on his feet to move, and so the stenosis was bad, and then it was just like it was hell on earth. Since 2021, since he fell and broke his back, he has basically lived in hell, in agony. And I'm super passionate about that. I'll be more passionate tomorrow. I can tell you, you don't you don't want to live in hell. Separate yourself from God, and you find hell. That's what hell is. Separate yourself from God. God inside your body is called your innate intelligence. Separate yourself from your innate intelligence, and you'll find hell. And if you're in the middle of hell right now, you can get out of it. You can make yourself healthier. And that's what we talk about every single day. And you owe it to yourself. And I owe it to you. And I'm sorry about how ridiculous this is tonight, but I just wanted to share it with you. I appreciate my dad. I love him. I told him that. It would be so nice. I told my mom a while ago. It'll be so nice to know the man without the disease. Because if it hadn't already happened here in the last hour, it's going to happen here in the next few hours. And his spirit is going to escape that flesh. And the Jim that I've never known, I'll get to know. I'll get to know it through the spirit, that because he no longer will be bound to that flesh that's all jacked up, that's trapped him and challenged him throughout his whole lifetime. And that's the beauty of the end of the story. The end of the story is the victory of it all. And I know that tonight or tomorrow he'll be having coffee with his brothers and his mom and dad, and then we'll move on. So that's my show. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and we'll be back here on Monday night at 6 with Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. Thanks.